How do you define the word success? Welcome to the Relive the Moments podcast. I'm John Lim. Welcome back to Relive the Moments. I'm your host, John Lim, and this episode feels special. This is the last solo episode of 2025, and I didn't want to rush this one. I didn't want to turn it into a checklist, a highlight reel, or a summary that just skims the surface. I wanted this to be a real moment of pause, a chance to reflect on what this year actually asked of us, what it gave us, what it took from us, and where we're choosing to go next. Because 2025 wasn't an easy year. It wasn't a quiet year. It wasn't a year you could just coast through. It was a year that required intention, resilience, patience, and honesty. And today, I want to talk about all of that. When I think back on 2025, one word comes to mind: demanding. This year demanded presence. It demanded consistency. It demanded that we show up even when we didn't feel ready, motivated, or clear. Starting and growing this podcast alone was a big part of that. It pushed me into unfamiliar territory, creatively, emotionally, and professionally. There was planning, learning, adjusting, scheduling, trusting others, trusting myself. But beyond the podcast, this year demanded growth in leadership, growth in communication, growth in how I manage time, energy, and expectations. There were moments of momentum, when things clicked, when progress felt visible, and there were moments of frustration, when things moved slower than expected, when plans had to change, when I had to accept that not everything is in my control. 2025 reminded me of something important. Growth doesn't always feel good while it's happening. Most of the time, it feels uncomfortable. But looking back now, I can say this year shaped me. It didn't just add to my life, it refined it. One thing I've learned this year is that the lessons that matter most aren't loud. They don't show up as big announcements or dramatic turning points. They show up quietly, through repetition. 2025 taught me that consistency matters more than motivation. There were days I felt inspired and days I didn't. But the days I showed up anyway, those are the days that built something real. This year also reinforced the value of structure. Structure isn't limiting, it's freeing. When you plan, when you communicate clearly, when you set systems in place, you create space to be creative and present. Another big lesson was about team and trust. Nothing meaningful gets built alone. This podcast, the projects around it, the momentum, none of it exists without people who support it behind the scenes. And finally, 2025 taught me that confidence comes from action, not thinking. The more I did, the more clarity I gained. The more clarity I gained, the more confident I became. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence. The kind that comes from knowing you can adapt, learn, and keep going. This year, I also noticed a shift in the conversations happening around growth and success. A lot of the books and ideas gaining traction recently point to the same thing I experienced firsthand. One of those is Slow Productivity by Cal Newport. The idea that doing less, but doing it better, leads to more meaningful results. That resonated deeply this year because rushing didn't get me clarity, reflection did. Another book that shaped a lot of thinking in 2025 conversations is Hidden Potential by Adam Grant. It reinforces the idea that growth isn't about talent, it's about systems, effort, and environment. That aligned perfectly with what this year showed me. And The Right Kind of Wrong by Amy Edmondson reframed failure in a way that felt honest. Not all mistakes are bad. Some are necessary. Some are part of learning how to build something new. These ideas didn't just live in books. They showed up in real life this year through conversations, decisions, experiments, and adjustments. As we close out this year, I've been asking myself a simple but important question. What am I not taking with me into 2026? I'm leaving behind the need to rush, the pressure to always do more, faster, louder. I'm leaving behind unnecessary overthinking, the kind that slows action instead of improving it. I'm leaving behind the idea that everything needs to be perfect before it's shared. This year proved that progress beats perfection every time. And I'm leaving behind old versions of myself that no longer fit, versions that hesitated more than they acted, versions that doubted before they tried. Those versions served their purpose, but they don't belong in the next chapter. Looking ahead to 2026, I don't see a year of reinvention. I see a year of refinement, building on what already works, deepening what already matters. I want 2026 to be about clarity, clear communication, clear priorities, clear intention behind what I say yes to and what I don't. I want to create better conversations, not just more content, more meaningful moments, more depth, more alignment between purpose and execution. And personally, I want to move into the next year with patience, trusting the process, trusting timing, trusting that consistent effort compounds in ways we don't always see immediately. If you're listening to this as the year comes to an end, I want you to hear this clearly. You don't need to have everything figured out to move forward. You just need to be honest about what worked, brave enough to let go of what didn't, and intentional about what you're building next. 2025 wasn't wasted. Even the hard parts. They shaped you. They taught you. They prepared you. And 2026 doesn't need a perfect plan. It just needs presence, effort, and belief. Thank you for being part of this journey, for listening, for supporting, for showing up. Relive the Moments exists because of the conversations we're having together. I'm John Lim. This was our final solo episode of 2025. Take care of yourself, honor your growth, and step into the new year with intention. I'll see you in 2026.